Go. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for stopping by another episode of Real Estate Titans, sponsored by Lionbolt Media. I'm your host, Greg Fowler, traveling at the marketplace, interviewing the top professionals in our field, essentially gathering insight, inspiration. It really drives and motivates these top producers above and beyond everybody else in what I'd like to consider a real estate titan. Now, our very special guest and feature titan for episode 291 from beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada, none other than Chris Biaggi. Chris, it's an honor and a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Greg, thank you. Thank you for having me.
This is going to be insane, Chris. Again, I've been very fortunate to know a few people in your world. They've said nothing but incredible things about you. This is my first experience with you having this conversation. So just like
Yes.
the audience, we're going to learn so much about you, your life, business, and your story. So I can't wait to dive in, my friend. This is going to be great.
Yeah. Well, hopefully I can live up to the hype.
There's a lot, but I have no doubt it is all realistic hype, Chris. I
Let's
love it.
do it. Let's do it.
So let's just start with the first question, which is kind of the origin story, right? If somebody doesn't know who you are, what your journey has been for 30 plus years into this industry, let's just start with that. So, who you are, Chris, where you from, what got you into the business, and kind of what your journey in your life is up until today. Let's start with the origin.
Yeah. So I think started at 19 years old. This is all I have ever done. So there was never for me a plan B in this industry. I had a dad who was in the business, and so I was introduced at a very young age to the mortgage industry and real estate in general. And it just sort of became the natural path for me. Uh, Graduated high school, didn't know what to do. I was an athlete, which I think when you look back and the different things that may have impacted me, certainly being team sports and being an athlete were probably very, very important to my overall development.
Sure.
Lots of life lessons to be learned in sports. But ultimately, yeah, at 19 years old, I was at a crossroads and decided to follow in my dad's footsteps. And that's where it all started for me. And I think really very early on, I realized that I had the right personality, just the right kind of DNA and makeup to do well in this business. And so that's the path I took.
But, so I got to unpack that just to back it up. So 19 years old, Chris. I mean, we've been doing Titans for 7 years now, just about. Very few individuals at that young of an age had the understanding that's the direction that they were going to go into their life, into career. So what was it at 19? Because the whole world is open as a 19-year-old and the opportunities. Obviously, you mentioned your father. So really, what was it at 19? He said, "Yep, that's where I'm going."
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know that I necessarily said this is where I'm going to be for the next 35 years. That would be, the crystal ball wasn't that strong at that point in my life. But again, I think I just felt it was a natural fit,
Okay.
and I think that's probably a lot has a lot to do with success for anybody at this
Mhm.
point, right? It's finding that place in life, that career that you're passionate about, something that you can really, really kind of sink your teeth into. And I think that's how really you last this many years in the business. You have to be passionate, has to be something you love. You have to really embrace the whole environment that this business provides. And I think that's really what I found over years. So I would say, to answer your question, it was not necessarily knowing where I would end up, but it felt like a good place for me. It felt like a fit. It was a fit for my personality and my work ethic.
Oh, wow. I mean, to me, and I'm not trying to praise you here, Chris, but wise beyond your years. That's all I got to say. I mean, even
Well, thank
even
you.
if you didn't have the crystal ball to see down this road that way, I mean, to get into this business and industry with the right personality and the work ethic and drive to really see this thing through for the long haul, massive in determination. So I do want to take you back to that time frame. So what was it like, 19, kind of getting into the business, and take us through kind of milestones, I guess, through your career that's leading you up to CEO today.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
there's a lot there.
yeah, so first and foremost, at 19 years old, it was about finding ways to make myself look older because, right? I mean, look, we talk
Yes.
about this being the most important, largest single transaction that most people undertake in their lives. And I'm 19 years old. Who's going to trust that type of a financial decision to a 19-year-old?
Mhm.
So there was that part of it. Now I started in the Bay Area, just a little bit south of San Francisco, San Jose, California. And I would say the first transition was making the decision to come to Las Vegas. So I'm
Ah.
24 years old. I've been in the business now 4 or 5 years. And honestly, the business was very difficult in the Bay Area.
Mhm.
We were uh, uh, interest rates were double digits.
Mhm.
So we were 10, 11, 12%. And it
Wow.
was a pretty anti growth area at that point. And more specifically, Santa Cruz, where I was basically born and raised, was
Mhm.
a very anti growth community. So here I am at 24 years old, staring kind of right into the eyes of a big decision. And that decision was I was either going to move to a new place where
Mhm.
I could actually, where I could be at least have a shot at the career, or I was going to find a new career.
Wow.
So at 24 years old, I had the opportunity. Somebody was here that I was kind of pointed in the direction of Las Vegas. I packed up my car.
Mhm.
I had never been to Las Vegas, and I
Wow.
moved here just on a whim. And here I am, 30 years later. So I
Unreal.
would say that decision to move to Las Vegas was number one. And for me, it was all about taking a chance. It was saying, hey, I'm in a point in my life. At a crossroads. I'm in an area of the country that is not supporting my career very well. I need to get out of here. And I did that. And that would be the first and foremost, I think, most important decision that I made in my life.
Mm. Wow. And again, just kind of seeing the early stages of your career evolve and being able to adapt and evaluate your environment, taking a chance or a leap of faith to really say, well, this is the place to go. This is where I'm going to kind of forge it or figure something out.
That's right.
Chris, that's huge to me when you break it down. Now, why was it Las Vegas? Like
It could have been
what about
anywhere.
because
Yeah.
think about that. You're coming from California, and then you're thinking, well, there's lots of places to go. So why? What was your thought process at 24?
Yep. So the guy that I work for was the one who led me in this direction. It was just by chance, honestly.
Okay.
He had a friend here in Las Vegas who had access to what at that point was sort of a dormant mortgage license and
Okay.
said, hey, and he said this to the entire team. There was maybe a half a dozen of us that actually made the decision to come to Las Vegas, but very quickly, um, I was the only one who kind of stuck it out. I was the only one who stayed. Everybody else went back to the hometown and I stayed here. But, part of that was really for me the decision. So as I land here, I knew that I was on a very short economic leash,
Okay.
literally dead broke,
Yeah.
living off my credit cards,
Hmm.
and staying in some pretty nasty hotels at that point. As a matter of fact, they've been torn down since. They're not even here anymore.
Unreal.
And so for the first 120 days, I did not take one day off. I worked 7 days a week. My my work day was for 12 hours. That was the minimum that I would allow myself to actually work. So it was coming here and saying, hey, I got to get going. I'm literally days, weeks from, basically living in my car. And so the decision was made. I called on every title company, every builder, every real estate agent for 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. And at day 45, I actually closed my first loan.
Unreal.
So I was now sort of, okay, I can do this. And it was all about building relationships very quickly, getting to the bottom of those relationships, attracting business as quickly as you could. And from there, things just started to happen naturally. And so very soon after that, I was closing loans on a regular basis and had a little pipeline of business going.
Unreal. And the framework that you set there, Chris, to me it's a fundamental basis of growth for anybody who's tuning into this is looking at it for going all in first and foremost, and really investing yourself wholeheartedly. Secondarily, putting in the massive amounts of continuous effort. And when you're saying that 7 days a week, 12 plus hour days for 100 and some odd days, people look at these professionals and such as you, and they say, oh gosh, it must be nice. But very few people are really taking the time to understand what it took to get there and the amount of effort that it took. And it's not for the faint of heart. And I love that you mentioned that so many, if not all of them, went back home. Whether their tails were between their legs or not is beside the point, but you stuck it out, still there doing your thing. I do want to take you back for a quick second to the appearing older as you're younger. And I think that connects with a lot of audience members that are in here. And we have people all over the world that tune in to this show, whether you're listening or watching us in here. And I think there's a huge fraction that can relate to being younger and trying to make that appearance happen because the trust factor there is there's an immediate thought to somebody, an average person. Well, because you're older or more seasoned, you're more knowledgeable. And because you're young, you must be new and not necessarily to the higher standard. Um, I can take it for myself personally, Chris, and hopefully you can relate to this, to taking it back too. I've always been the youngest guy in the room that way in every kind of sales orientation that I've been involved with in my life. Usually double my age in most of the situations that way. And what I took at a very young age, and this is what I tell youth all the time, is I say, hey, you're at a disadvantage immediately, but you have a massive advantage. And the disadvantage is the appearance right off the bat. Um, and I think the only way to really combat that, and I would love your opinion and perspective on it, is to be that much more knowledgeable,
Oh yeah.
that much more credible into the nature of being with the people, understanding what their needs, wants, and desires are, and really knowing your craft. Putting in the extra and additional time frame that somebody who is more seasoned maybe doesn't have to show up so that when they first at face value look at you and say, oh gosh, who's that young guy or that young girl? But as soon as you open your mouth, immediate credibility, immediate knowledge, and most importantly, connectivity. So I don't know what your thoughts are when there. I mean, I didn't know if you were throwing some grays in there too, Chris, at the early age or things instead of reversing. But what were
Yeah,
you
yeah.
doing back then?
Yeah,
Just
so I think you made a lot of great points, and first and foremost, just because you're new to something doesn't mean that you can't educate yourself, that you can't be highly trained.
sure.
I think that if you were going to go to the doctor, right, you would want to be working with somebody who was up to speed on the latest technologies, the latest surgeries. All of that would be very important to you in making that decision. So I always felt the same way, even though I was 19, 20 years old, having those types of conversations. I always took a lot of pride in knowing my craft. So that means investing during those early years and really educating yourself so that way you do stand out in the crowd. But I think as far as making yourself look older, certainly it was how you might dress, right?
Yeah,
So I'm going to certainly be wearing a suit and tie.
for sure.
I'm gonna try to look the best I can, the most successful, the most professional that I possibly can, in order to make that impression. But really, I think that's the most important, and I think the best advice that anybody could give is to really, really be the best at your craft. Understand what you're doing. Spend the time and invest the time in educating yourself, and that was a big part of it. So when I opened my mouth, when I had that conversation, even though they may see a younger face, they heard a more seasoned voice.
Mm. Powerful across the board. And I think no matter what age demographic you're tuning into this, or no matter where you are in your career path, whether you're new or seasoned, you should always be learning, always be growing, and showing up as your best self, a true professional, no matter what that standpoint is. And Chris, that's a beautiful example. And I love going backwards to kind of take that reflection. So let's go back to where we left off, which is you're building up steam momentum. Right. So you're
Yep.
really growing and evolving in Las Vegas. So take it from there. What's the next major milestone? And I would love to get to obviously to AWM and talk about leadership and you evolving as the CEO and all the things that way. So, but let's kind of go in a little bit of a different order here. So, what's the next progression after you're building up momentum in Las Vegas?
So I think really it was just continuing to build a foundation.
Mhm.
So for me, I never was in a huge hurry to get to that next milestone. I was always a very patient individual.
Mhm.
I'm not. I'm okay taking time to
Oof.
get to that next level, and I think that was a very that did well for me. That
Mhm.
mindset. Um, so many times I see people that are just in such a hurry to get to the top of the mountain, and ultimately that might not be the best path for you. And so for me, it was about just taking a nice, slow, measured pace, continuing to build relationships. And that for me has been the key. You'll hear me say that 100 times over. But I think the key is, really dedicating and investing in those relationships. So at that point, How many real estate agents can I meet? How many builders can I get in front of? How many escrow officers can I talk to that might refer me business? And really building relationships, right?
Wow.
It's the likability factor, it's the trust factor, it's bringing value and relevance to those relationships. And slowly over time, I became the top producer at All Western Mortgage.
Mm.
And so this probably put me, somewhere in my late 20s.
Okay.
And I was closing a very significant amount of business.
Mhm.
Had a lot of great support staff and people that supported me in those efforts. But ultimately, I would say that would be the next milestone. So,
Okay.
getting to a point in my career where I had a consistent flow of business, starting to really establish myself within the community.
Wow. And again, I love that you're mentioning this too, Chris, and this is huge takeaways for everybody. You're spot on. Everyone is in such a rush to move forward through life and through career and to take the time to enjoy the process, the good, the bad, and the ugly, into that, and knowing that doing the right things the right way are going to build a long lasting legacy and a path into life. And that's not just professionally, but that's personally. You think about the relationships and the like and trust factor that we have with individuals. It doesn't happen overnight. Everyone is looking for a shiny object or that next magic pill or potion to really get them there or leapfrog. And I think that what you're saying, Chris, is just amazing. The fact that you're taking it that way. Now, some people would argue and say, well, it's easy for Chris to say that because Chris started at 19 and he has the time to take
Oh,
the
that's
time.
true. I don't disagree.
So as I look at that, I say, okay, there are some points there, as the audience might be thinking this or feeling it, but at the same time, Rome wasn't built in a day. And you think about anyone who's tuning into this right now, your life, your relationships, your career path, it takes time, right? So doing the right actions the right way over that time can help the curve, right, and speed the process up. But ultimately, work is work.
Yeah,
I think a great directive into that is, simplifying the process, but that doesn't mean that it's easy. And there's so many people that come in and out of the business, whether they're, realtors or lenders, into the space, title side, whatever the case may be, and they just think it's going to be quick and easy. And ultimately, they see themselves out just as fast as they came in. So the fact that you're been there, done that, bought the t-shirt again and again, Chris, and 35 years, that's just huge. That's huge. So let's go into you're in your late 20s, kind of cresting into your 30s. What's the next step from that in your mind?
yeah. So I think first I want to go back and touch on something
Hmm,
that
please.
you just kind of brought up, and I think that ultimately, where that patience paid off for me, and I talk about this all the time. We have to change our mindset. The mindset typically is instant gratification. I want to do something. I want to do it very quickly. I want to very quickly see the results. The problem is that the building of a relationship, especially in our industry, I always say takes 12 to 18 months. So if you were a real estate agent and I was to call on you today
Mhm.
and make that initial interaction and that initial contact with you, I know that I'm not going to receive any opportunity for you for the next 12 to 18 months. And if I don't have that mindset, what's going to happen? I'm going to give up early and I'm going to miss the reward that's at the end of that 12 or 18-month period of time.
Wow.
So I think that's critical for us to learn. Otherwise, and look, in this is the age of instant gratification, right? Nobody is patient anymore. That's really going to be a problem for people if whether they're new into this business or they're trying to build their business currently.
Mhm.
That patience is going to be a key factor.
Oof. Super powerful and continued notes here, Chris, which is fascinating for everybody, and myself included. You're looking at it from a mindset and perspective. I know you create incredible content when it comes to mindset and perspective, 30 plus years in the business. So again, just understanding that process from somebody who's been through so much. And again, not saying that Chris knows it all and it's not that
No,
he's pretending
no.
to,
Still learning.
Which is beautiful. And we talked about that early on. Doesn't matter how new or seasoned you are, constantly learning and growing, no matter what the standpoint. I forgot what the adage is, Chris, but the person who says that they know it all, they've already lost. It's just kind of one of those situations. And I think that when you talk about mindset, to me, that's crucially important. I know for the audience. So before we jump into your timeline further, can we talk about your YouTube channel, kind of what's going on there?
Yeah.
If the audience wants to obviously consume more, I would highly recommend it. But let's talk about that for a sec.
And so again, mindset to me is a huge part of this business, and ultimately, there's a lot of skills that you have to have. We talked about knowledge and understanding, being educated in your craft. But I think the mindset really is a critical component of this. So what we're going to be doing on our YouTube channel, and the people that I'm interviewing, I'm not asking them the normal questions. How'd you get into the business?
Sure.
What's your favorite marketing strategy? For me, it's really about understanding them as people and what makes them tick. I
Wow.
think there are some common threads that we will find amongst successful people,
Sure.
where we can point very clearly to certain personality traits, certain actions and activities, mindset, whatever it may be. There will be a lot of similarities, but I think
Mhm.
that's really what's most important. If we can get to that point with people, to where then we can take these skills, these techniques, strategies, and deploy them in our own day to day and in our business, that's where I think the success really happens. And again, I think that too many people, don't have that proper mindset. They don't have that patience. They don't have that kind of forward vision, long game type of a perspective. And that's where I think many miss out on the real success, kind of, at the end of the rainbow, so to speak.
I mean, but to me, Chris, I appreciate where you're coming from with that, and the fact that you're taking the time to curate the content, to give back to the world and the community that has given you so much over all this time is beautiful. And the fact that you're looking at it from a distillation of knowledge, and to me, that's important too, right? Getting to know the person and the background and the individualistic nature. I love it personally. I'm just naturally curious. But ultimately, the audience is tuning in to understand, how can I better myself? What can I do for my life, for my goals, for my family, for my clients? And how can I really exponentially grow that? Learning from greatness, learning from others who have been there, done that. And so I absolutely love what you're doing. And I'm a fan personally, and I can't wait to more content to come out. I'm going to have down in the show notes any links directly so you can subscribe and follow as Chris continues to share this knowledge out that way too. So I appreciate that. I do want to go to the next level here. So let's go into the next major milestone that you'd consider kind of
Yeah.
early
Yeah.
30s and a time frame there, Chris. So didn't mean to digress. Just wanted
No,
to.
no, no. Hey, 2005. That was the next milestone, and that's when I actually purchased All Western Mortgage. So I, at that point, became the owner of the company. The two gentlemen that had run it for years were ready for retirement, and so I took over the company at that point. We were a small mortgage broker,
Okay.
doing business solely here in Southern Nevada, and so that was it. Now, of course, shortly thereafter comes 2008. And so the decision to buy a mortgage company in 2005 all of a sudden didn't look like such a great choice. But kind of going back to some earlier comments, I've always been a very patient individual. I've been a conservative operator as it relates to, just building balance sheet, building reserves, investing back into the organization versus taking out. And
Mm.
ultimately, that was a great way for us to survive 2008, 2009. So I would say that kind of era for me was a huge learning curve,
Mm.
being a new owner, leader within the organization. And that's really where I think my career sort of started.
Okay. Okay. And the fact of the matter is you take us to 2005, and yeah, at that time, I mean, that's to most people, great time. Yeah, let's do this. This is perfect timing. No one foresaw what was going on, or very few, into 7, 8, 9, those sorts of scenarios. And what is fascinating, Chris, is that you have taken this as a true business into that standpoint to say, how are we really going to build and grow and scale this, even in times where people were having hardships. I mean, that was a very tough time in the business, and anybody who's lived through that, there's a lot of perspective that have been applied. Obviously, there's been exponential growth since then over periods of time. I think the ones that have been through that time frame learned a lot,
Yep.
and they applied their knowledge to say, hey, during this run up, we're going to make sure that we're solidifying and squirreling away and making sure that we're saving for a rainy day because they come. What we'll get to in a minute, but I think what I want to take away from this, Chris, and I would love for the audience to hear your perspective, even at 2005, and I'm sure it was timing through ownership and leadership that way. What were you going through at the time in your mind? Because there's a process for a mortgage professional to just continue to grow their book of business and as an individual loan officer and or to generate a team, but to purchase a business or to open up a business, that's a whole nother level. So
Yep.
what were you going through? What was your thought during that time frame in 2005 prior to before 2008, right? I mean, what were you thinking about? Why then?
Yeah. I mean, I felt like it was the right next step in my career. I was ready for it personally. I certainly not ready for it from a business leader perspective, man. I
Okay.
mean,
Yeah.
that was just the why I said that was sort of the start of my career because that learning curve just was incredible and it was difficult. I learned a lot. I knew the business very well. I felt like I had the right mindset, the right personality for it, but had no idea what I was getting myself into. So ultimately, yeah, it was just really it was exciting, but also I had a lot of fear as well as to the unknown. And now, okay, here I am. I'm at the big desk, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I tell you one thing that I did learn very quickly, and this has served me well throughout my entire career, is that I tease. So when I purchased the company, I thought, well, hey, now I'm the big boss. But what I realized is at that moment in time, I actually work for everybody else. So I
Oh,
have really taken that. I think like I said, very early, learn that lesson. And you hear the term servant leadership. I am a humble servant of this organization,
wow.
and I work for the people of this organization. And that was something that I learned very early on. Your ego has to be in your back pocket. You have to be a leader that listens to the people around them, and really makes decisions based on gathering the information, listening to the people around you, and then doing what you feel is best for the organization in the end. But those are some lessons that I learned very early on, and they still to this day serve me very well.
Wow, Chris, and the fact that you're talking about, checking the ego and really focusing on the individuals first, is a big thing. And I correct me if I'm wrong, but there is kind of a slogan or a mantra that you kind of distill down here, which is loan officer first. And I think that when you look at it from that, it's the individuals are the sum of all parts that really make something great. It's not just one person, it's the team. And I think that this is thrown around quite a bit too. If you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And
Yep.
obviously that's what you've done and continue to do, Chris, because now we're talking about, okay, we're in 2005, now we went into 2008, 9, so on.
Yep.
What was it like past that time frame? So let's talk about kind of that midpoint up until today.
Yeah.
Let's go down there.
So look, I think, and this I think is important for all of us to take away is, opportunity is great, but opportunity without determination, it goes nowhere. And
Mhm.
I think that, what really happened at this next point for me was having opportunity, meaning that the company had grown enough. It obviously had survived a very difficult market, which sort of really spoke volumes to people. I would get that all the time. Wow, well, you survived 2008, so you must be doing something right. But so opportunity was there, but really determination was the key. So it was now taking the company from being a mortgage broker into a mortgage banker, which
Mhm.
was a very difficult thing to do coming out of what basically the mortgage crisis, the mortgage meltdown, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
But we did that. So we transitioned into a full mortgage banker
Wow.
slowly, again, with patience,
Okay.
very measured, very thoughtful in how we would do it, but continuing down a road with the goal being very clear as to where we wanted to end up. So that was really kind of that 2010, even up till just a few years ago, was really curating the business. You talk about loan officer first, and that's really done kind of, as a loan officer, I know how I wanted to be treated,
Yep.
right? You're gonna build an organization that is supportive of its salespeople, and really at the end of the day, they are my customers. And so that is the culture that we've created, that we sort of built over time, and that really set us up for, I think, where we are today. And I don't want to jump ahead, but ultimately, it was really having the patience, taking the time to build the organization, and that goes from everything from, as I mentioned, culture, but also building a good foundation of products and programs, unique products to the market, having delegations, all of the approvals that you need to operate, so that you can deliver a high level of execution to your people. And I think that's what we did in those 10 years ish, between 2010 and 2020.
Hmm. And again, the transition, as you're mentioning, and going about it the right way, Chris, and not leapfrogging or trying to speed up the process, but doing it the right way. Obviously, it speaks volumes about getting through those times, continually growing and scaling and adjusting, bringing on wonderful people into the organization. To me, I think that you mentioned 2008 and survival. Some people would say that you could argue 2023 and 2024. Hey, if you survive that, man,
Yeah.
oh man. So Chris, I want to get your perspective on kind of that standpoint, because as we're filming this now, I mean, it is December 17th, 2024. So if anybody is curious like what time frame this is happening, this is towards the end of 2024. So what are your thoughts into that time frame? All Western mortgage, like growth, expansion, leadership, mentorship. What's happened with the organization, and kind of what's the next process there?
Well, I think, look, first of all, you mentioned 2020, 2021, both incredible years in our industry. And for me, it was sort of a replay of where we were 2005 to 2008.
Mhm.
So it was about, again, it was about being conservative. It was about building balance sheet, building reserves, investing back into the organization versus pulling out. So when 2023 comes, 2022, interest rates go up, 2023, here we are in 2024, we were very well prepared
Love it.
for what was to come. And I think really, again, that was just about following a plan, following a playbook that we had already done years earlier, and not forgetting those very valuable lessons that we learned at that time. But, look, what I found with growth is it becomes, the first chunk of growth is very difficult. The second part becomes a little bit easier, and it gets easier. It gets easier because as you build the organization, you start to add very good people
Mm.
that are very growth minded. Some of those that we have as common friends here. I think that's really where you start to see things kind of accelerate themselves. And that's what's happened over the last couple of years here at AWM, is there's been an acceleration of that growth. Still, in my mind, a thoughtful, measured growth, because I always say I don't ever want to grow at the expense of those that are already here.
Wow.
I think that's an important philosophy and way to operate. Too many companies, they grow so quickly that they forget about the people that are with them, that have been with them for many years. And so we try to be very mindful of that in the way that we support and the way that we deliver to them, even while we grow. But really, I think that's been the key, is adding those growth-minded people who understand how we operate in the culture here, and from there, we've seen significant growth.
Wow. But Chris, and as you're mentioning that, there's just a reoccurring message throughout your life, your journey, and the way that you conduct yourself as a professional, but as a person. And that reads through very, very direct, which I love. For me, I'm curious, and I'm sure the audience is, what does the future look like for AWM? I mean, where do you see that going? And I mean, for anybody who's tuning in, obviously, I would love to say, how do others align with you if they want to go along with that journey? So I guess, where do you see the future? No crystal ball,
Yeah.
no magic wand waving, but where do you see it? Where are you amplifying?
Well, I mean, look, this is a difficult industry, and I think it was Mike Tyson who said it best, right? You have a plan until you get punched in the face, something like
Yes.
that. And I think that very well sort of speaks to our business. And I think so for me, it's always that same playbook. I am going to continue to build the foundation of the company, continue to build balance sheet, build reserves, build execution, and deliver a very high level of service to the people that work here, and again, our customers. So that playbook's not going to change. What is changing is our geography. We will soon be in 41 states.
Wow.
We have over 30 branch locations, over 300 loan officers. So the organization continues to grow, but again, at a very thoughtful pace that I think is very aware of who we bring in, making sure that we feel that they're a fit, both from a business perspective, but also from a cultural perspective. So really, nothing's going to change for me. I'm gonna take what comes. High interest rates, low interest rates, none of that matters to me. It's something that I can't control. So I'm going to focus on the things that I can control, and continue to do what we've been doing. So that's really the way I see things. And then, as far as the distant future, I don't know. I feel like I love what I do. I'm still very passionate about this. I have no interest in doing anything else in my life at this point. I don't have a hobby. I don't play golf. My wife probably loves it that I go to work, right? I'd drive her crazy if I was home all day. So this is it. This is where I'm going to be.
Chris, I love that. And again, all in through life and perspective. And again, there's so much more that we haven't unpacked about you as a man, but I feel that everybody understands kind of the directive and what's happening here. And obviously it speaks volumes about the longevity, but the individuals that you're aligned with and continue to grow and scale with is phenomenal. This is something that we're very fortunate to have on Titans is we've had quite a few CEOs over the years, really share their story, their journey, but their perspective. And you're among so many greats. And I'd put you right up there, Chris,
Wow.
100% with so many past Titans that are there. But this is where people love to tune in, the tactical takeaway sort of perspective. Now, this can come from any aspect of your life, from a personal or professional standpoint. And this one in particular is if you could go back and pick or choose one or two things that you added or implemented that you really saw growth, scale, movement of the needle into either your life personally or to your business professionally, what does that look like? What advice would you give? And Chris, I know you've already given a ton of great advice peppered throughout this entire thing. So if you are only tuning into this once, pause it, rewind it,
Yeah.
watch it again, listen to it again. There's so much to take away here, Chris. But what advice would you give to the audience? Anything that sticks out to you?
Well, I mean, I think first of all, being open to change,
Mm,
and adapting your business for not only what the current business environment, where that takes us, but also the consumer, the customer.
mm,
So I would use social media as one of the top things that I would absolutely encourage people. And I was a late adopter, honestly,
okay.
and only recently have gotten on board. And what I noticed with social media, like building a relationship, there are a series of milestones, and we've talked about milestones a lot today. But
Mhm.
but in building a relationship with a referral partner, or even a customer, there are a series of milestones that have to happen in order for that to take place, to have a successful relationship.
Mm,
And I think what social media has done for me and others around me is it's really sort of jumped us over the first two or three milestones that can take days, weeks, months, and really sort of put the relationship very far ahead of the curve.
mm,
So if I was going to give any advice, I would say embrace social media, start today, and really focus on that as a strong component of your business. And I think the other part of it would be the other side of that coin would be building, and I call it hand to hand combat. It
ooh,
is it is out there in the streets, talking to people, networking, building relationships. That face to face is still an important part of our business. And I
100%.
think too many people try to rely on the social media. I want to do it quick. I want to text. I want to do a blast email out. And yes, that's a good thing to be doing. And those are important components, but blend those with
Mm,
old fashioned relationship building, skills. And I think with those two things working hand in hand, you're going to find success.
And I love the fact that you're mentioning the marriage of the two, Chris, because there's so many people that tune in, they jump on one side or the other, and it has to be black or white. And there is a very particular mixture of success with that. Too many people are trying to focus on the things that don't necessarily produce or move the needle into life and bring in revenue. And correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, and if you feel differently, please just jump in. But the idea behind it is this is a relationship business, and we
Yes.
deal with people every day. And ultimately, the ones that we get to know, like, and trust are the ones that end up transacting. And the easiest way for us to get to know, like, and trust each other is to face be with each other, to spend time, to show up time and time again. I love the fact that you mentioned the time frame of 12 months plus to really build that relationship with that individual, and that runs true. So the physicality behind it should never go away, but people are looking for that easy button. Understanding that the most important things to do are to build relationships, connect with people, find what works best for you. What I've come into consideration with and working with so many people all over the world doing this on a digitized sense is the best results end up being the marriage of the two. The ones that are completely digital, they're missing opportunities to deeply connect. And yes, they can bring in revenue and increase transactions, but ultimately that's a flash in the pan. It's quick, right? If you're looking for sustainable growth consistently, you want to be doing the things that really matter on both. Digitized nature amplifies the person that Chris is, right? But nothing's ever going to beat Chris face to face. So I love that you're mentioning that for the audience out here is to understand that the importance of shaking hands, meeting people, get involved in the community should never go away. But making sure that you're distilling down and amplifying that personality and that perspective in as many places as possible to attract the right people into your life so that you can help more families and increase transactions.
Yep.
So the huge advice, Chris. And again, the fact that you're breaking this down for the audience right now, it's huge. The honesty and characteristics that you show here, huge. You're not saying, "Oh, I've been all over this. I've been doing this forever." A more recent realization, but that's beautiful. I mean, you being in the business for 30 some odd years and then saying, "Hey, like there's more.
Yeah.
There's time for to evolve." Love
Absolutely.
it.
If you're not open to change and you're not open to adapting, and then that's really probably for me the word that I like to use is to adapt, um, and understanding that it has to be a balanced approach. There is no single, in my mind, not that I have found any single approach that can just bring the type of success that most people are looking for. So yeah, absolutely, it's about utilizing the tools. And look, social media allows us to, why somebody said this perfectly, to scale the unscalable.
Mm,
How do I talk to hundreds of people at one time?
sure.
It can only be done through social media, at least for under our budget, right?
Mhm.
If you've got millions of dollars to spend on Super Bowl commercials, maybe that's a different story. But hey, this is a platform that allows us to do that. But still, and you said the word deepen, in order to really secure and deepen those quality relationships, the type of face-to-face interaction cannot be replaced by social media.
Mhm. 100%. I love it. It's the closest thing to the physical, but nothing will replace it, in my opinion. I mean, there's AI spoken of, and everybody's saying a robot's going to take over.
Yep.
Look, Chris, I mean, you've been doing this for a long time. You understand this better than most people on the planet. It is connecting with ones that we love and respect, and ultimately a mutually reciprocal relationship that we're building and helping each other. It's about serving others and aligning with individuals that get that. And not everybody's going to, and that's okay. And that's what I love about having conversations like this and you talking about content that you're creating through mindset, that you're distributing out to the world to give freely, and the right people will align. The right people will come into our lives. And I think that's important. Light attracts light. Um, the right message will equally attract, but then also repel. And that's saving everybody time. And so, with that note, though, Chris, what's the best way for people to connect with you? Obviously, we're going to have all your links down below, everything that's going on. But if somebody is really interested to learn more about you, AWM, anything and everything that you're doing, what's the best course for them to get a hold of you or
Yeah,
the team?
Yeah, look, Instagram is the one platform that I embraced first.
Mhm.
So it's the one I know the best. And again, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I am a new, I'm new to the game, but
Sure.
definitely DM me, Chris.Biaggi. That's my Instagram handle. LinkedIn is the same. So just those would be the two platforms that I think I spend the most time on without going crazy. But would love to hear from anybody on either of those places there, and I will respond and we can engage. And obviously, you mentioned the YouTube channel.
Mhm.
Uh, I'm putting out content daily on Instagram, LinkedIn. So my goal for that is for people to get a snapshot, just a little tidbit of who I am as an individual. And I think that that also translates to the type of organization that we are as a company, and how we operate. And hopefully that is conveyed in what I'm doing every day. So yeah, I would love to hear from the audience here.
Oh, this is great, Chris. And again, I would encourage everybody to like and subscribe to follow this man, because this is only a taste of the knowledge and expertise and information that Chris brings to the table, and really just looking at it from a holistic standpoint. I love it, Chris. I mean, this has been an incredible conversation, getting to know you as a person, but as a professional, and it's just been great. Having the time and taking the time that you are as a busy CEO to really do this is very meaningful. And I can't thank you enough for taking the time, Chris. It means a lot.
Greg, that was my pleasure. I really enjoyed it. It was great getting to meet you, and I love the questions, and the conversation was fantastic. So thanks for having me.
Oh, hey, it's a two-way street, my friend. This is reciprocal in nature, right? Good conversations come both ways in my mind. I know that the audience took so much away from this, as did I. So again, the honor was mine 100%. And we definitely maybe need to do a 2.0, a deeper dive, some strategization, really from the mind of a CEO, but then also mindset, leadership. Chris, I mean, I know there's a wealth of knowledge that we didn't even tap into yet, but we got to be respectful of the audience and keep this in a timely manner. So, yeah, but I do want to thank you again, Chris. I do want to thank the audience, as always, for your time and attention, your love and support. I cannot be respectful enough. There's so many different pieces of content that you could be consuming, so many places that you could be subscribed to. The fact that you're taking the time to hang out with me and Chris today is extremely meaningful. So that doesn't fall on deaf ears, and the gratitude is massive. So I have to thank you. I also do have to give our sponsor a quick shout out, Lionbolt Media. If you are a real estate professional looking to grow and scale your business to the highest of levels with leading edge digital marketing, visit lionboltmedia.com for more information. Now, we're live here every Tuesday afternoon, a different Titan, a different location. Catch everybody on the next live episode of Real Estate Titans. Take care. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Greg.